overlooked in Nigeria. Ibejuleki Council cracks down on illegal waste dumping. NAPTIP rescues 8 children from Asaba orphanage. NNPC boss Ojulari urges African energy collaboration. National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism upgrades Lagos training facilities. And Lagos APC dismisses PDP's criticism of Tinubu's endorsements as comic relief. International Republican Institute rates Labour Party high on inclusive policies. Adamawa State is hit by another devastating flood just months after a previous disaster left dozens dead. Bandits led by Ado Alero kill traditional ruler in Zamfara's Safe local government area. And Israel expands ground offensive in Gaza. UN report accuses Israel of genocide in Gaza. Also in Israel, Israel rejects UN genocide report as false distorted. EU agrees common plan on displaced Ukrainians. And Trump sues New York Times for $15 billion. Poland's new president, Nawrocki, visits Berlin over World War II reparations. And Oscar-winning actor and director Robert Redford dies at 89. And finally, Nigeria's Tobi Amuso wins silver at World Athletics. That's all for the news. If you have a news tip for us, call us on 014657175. I am Boluwatife Jegede. Hard Facts continues with Maryann Okon.
Number one talk station of Lagos.
Join the conversation online or on the go.
Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM
and Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos.
And watch us live on Facebook and YouTube.
Be part of the Info family.
Log on to nigeriainfo.fm on our mobile app and website.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
The news. Timely, fresh as it breaks on 99.3 Nigeria.
Nigeria Info, your number one for news. Always spot on, fresh and direct on 99.3 Nigeria Info. This is your number one station.
99.3.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
The stories that matter to you from across the street to across the globe.
There was a general complaint of voter apathy. What do you think was responsible for that?
This man is telling America, you so close of house poppy, you do this, so you close. Also, you deputy inspector general police. What a shame.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
There's a reason why over 1 million people tune into Hard Facts every day. We discuss in-depth stories with sources behind the facts.
The Lagos State High Court has
Sitting
convicted, suspended the Chicago certificate stories. Never going away, is it? Show with stories for the day.
You hear diverse voices and opinions.
Husband is not a magician, and she was meeting campaign with her husband, knowing that.
You should not be happy because there is nothing to happy about.
Yeah, it's quite pathetic the way the country is going.
We distinguish each story accurately with analysis.
It's Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Is the nation's number one talk news and sports radio station, 99.3 Nigeria Info. We're broadcasting live from our audiovisual studio right here in Itimi and Crescent, Victoria Island, Lagos. This is Hard Facts, and I'm Maryann Okon. Good evening, Lagos. Good evening, Nigeria. This is Hard Facts. As usual, we're going to be looking deep into this conversation. I did tell you earlier on the 3 o'clock hour that we will be talking about the situation between Cross River, Akwa Ibom, and Cameroon. Today, we're digging into decades-long, resource and identity battle between two South-South states, Cross River and Akwa Ibom. What's at stake? 76 offshore oil wells, billions in derivation revenue. And the question of whether Cross River State is still a literal state after losing its parts to Bakassi, or rather to Cameroon, part of Bakassi to Cameroon, because there's that argument that, look, there's still Bakassi here and there's still Bakassi in Cameroon. The Supreme Court, we heard, had twice ruled in favor of Akwa Ibom, but Cross River State says new boundary data put 67 of these oil wells squarely within its maritime territory. There's even speculation that Akwa Ibom may have been making some form of derivation payments or revenue transfers to Cross River State as a form of settlements. That's we will unpack by the time I introduce my guest to get to find out the truth behind this. Now, if this is true, does that change the nature of this dispute? Anyway, joining me to discuss this live via Zoom is the former Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly, Right Honourable John-Gaul Lebo. He is also here to help us unpack the history, the law, the geography, and what's at stake for both states, and of course for Nigeria's oil revenue sharing system. Honourable, it's so good to have you join us on the show. Welcome back. I mean, you're no stranger to Nigeria Info, so welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Lovely. You were a speaker at the time. I think you've been a two-time speaker. You've been speaker under my former boss, Leah Limoke. You have been speaker under Professor Ben Ayade. Walk us through the history of this dispute, from the ICJ ruling to on this issue of Bakassi to the Supreme Court's judgment of 2005 and that of 2012. Most importantly, in legal terms, what does this mean when you say a state is a literal state? And does Cross River State still meet that definition after the secession to Bakassi? Let's start from there.
Okay, thank you very much. Clearly, in 1913, during the colonial era, the British did sign an agreement with the Germans. The Germans were in charge of what became Cameroon. The British were in charge of what is Nigeria now. Signed an agreement called Anglo-German Treaty, where they transferred a portion of the Nigerian territory, land and maritime boundary, to Germany, and Germany eventually transferred it to Cameroon as Cameroon became an independent nation. Before 1913, in 1845, that territory was under the control of the kings and chiefs of Efik, under a king called Achibong III. And then the British entered into agreement with the Efiks to be able to come into contact with Nigeria, and all of their administrative exploration started through Calabar. And so it was the Achibong III who gave the territory, the Bakassi area, and most of the maritime territory to the British. And the British gave it to the Germans without the knowledge of the King of Calabar. Now, between 1913, Cameroon waited till 1994 to challenge, to ask for the ownership of part of that territory, the land and the maritime territory. That territory that they asked for is the whole of Bakassi. They filed in 1994. By 1996, General Sani Abacha, having realized the extent and the damage that the judgment, if it is given against Nigeria, will happen, decided to create Bakassi local government out of part of the Bakassi claim that Cameroon made. Mm-hmm. Now, Bakassi is divided into Bakassi South and Bakassi West. Bakassi South is located towards the coast of Cameroon by the Douala Basin and by a place called Rio de Rey. Mm-hmm. While Western Bakassi is located from Ikang Mangrove, Day Spring, Abana to the Calabar Estuary. Now, the mouth of the sea, the Nigerian mouth of the sea, in the area called Akwa Akpa, which is the Calabar River, eventually some people call it Akwa Yepa or Kwa Yepa. All of that is the mouth of the sea of this dispute. So the ICJ now ruled in 2000 and in 2002 gave its judgment. The judgment of the ICJ is particularly very important because the ICJ clearly divided the territory between Nigeria and Cameroon claim. Cameroon got 70%, Nigeria got 30%. Now, towards the coast of Cameroon, between Douala Basin, Rio de Rey, and Bakassi. You need to know before I conclude on that Cameroon is a concave, has a concave maritime territory. Concave maritime territory is that the water drags you into your city, into your coastal territory. You are not on the mouth directly on, and you have to come out to get to the mouth of the sea. And then when you get to the mouth of the sea, Cameroon has access to the sea, but do not have access to the Gulf of Guinea. Why? Because Bakassi is the heart of the mouth is the heart of Gulf of Guinea, and after Bakassi is Equatorial Guinea. So Cameroon did not have territory beyond into the Gulf of Guinea, and they don't have boundary with Equatorial Guinea. So they went to court to be able to get access to the Gulf of Guinea and then be able to have boundary with Equatorial Guinea. So you need to understand that the area of dispute in maritime law, even though it's called the sea, is demarcated to three economic interests. That sea itself, there's a place called the Atlantic Ocean, dealing with the river basins, all in that area. So in river basin, you have Douala Basin is the river basin, Cross River Basin across the river basin, Rio Muni Basin, Equatorial Guinea is river basin, Niger Delta Basin is river basin. The Cross River Basin is where you have Akwa Ibom. All of the whole of the southeast, all the southeast states, Imo, Anambra, Abia, Enugu are under Cross River Basin. The mouth of the sea of the Calabar Estuary is the entrance, is the Nigerian entrance to the sea, is the littoral access of Nigeria to all of that. So by the time the ICJ gave its judgment, the ICJ gave that judgment and protected three different regional economic interests. They protected the Atlantic Ocean, they protected the Gulf of Guinea, and the sea. When you talk about the sea in international law, it's with respect to the coastline between two international states. That's where you talk about the sea. So the sea in this case in Nigeria is the mouth of Akwa Efa. When you talk about the Gulf of Guinea, it is the islands of Bakassi and the islands of Bioko. And those islands, they are Abana, Atabong, Achibong Town, Tom Short, Efiat Island. That is across the Cameroon area. Across the Cross River, you have the Ikang Mangrove, you have Day Spring 1 and 2, you have Western Abana, and then you have the Calabar Estuary. So in all, you can see there are about 9 islands. Cameroon took 5.5, Nigeria got 3.5. That is what happened. So when that judgment was given and that was taken out, what Nigeria had left behind was, because the judgment of the court said in specific terms in paragraph, because the judgment of ICJ, you better understand it through paragraphs and pages. Paragraph 245 of the judgment, it said the boundary between Nigeria and Cameroon will be located in a place in something called Talwak, which is the deepest maritime point at the mouth of the Akwa Efa River. The mouth of the Akwa Efa River is the part of the sea from where water comes into Nigeria, flows into the river, Cross River, and flows towards Oron as well. That's where the judgment is. And the court went ahead and divided the Ikang Mangrove, which is also part of the Bakassi Island, into two, equidistant equally. Gave Cameroon half and gave us half. In other words, Nigeria did not lose all of Bakassi by the ICJ judgment. Nigeria lost Atabong, Achibong Town, part of Tom Short, and then lost Efiat Island. Tom Short is regarded as the highest current, the highest tide of the ocean. And so the Tom Short is a contiguous zone and is used for the purpose of delineation. In other words, Nigeria will continue to draw its maritime boundary from Tom Short Island. So the resources from Tom Short down belongs to Nigeria and Cameroon. So here, coming to Nigeria, what is now left of Bakassi is the remaining island, the remaining portion of the Ikang mangrove forest, which is in Cross River State, and then Day Spring within Western Bakassi. There's Day Spring 1 and 2 for the purpose of what Abacha did. He created one council ward in Day Spring, another council ward in Day Spring 2. Then created another council ward, and then the council ward of Ikang. Even though the council ward of Ikang is inside is inland in Ikang town, not in the mangrove. The mangrove is inside the sea. So you have that, then the Cross River Estuary. So Nigeria had the balance of that territory left behind. The dispute between Nigeria and Cameroon, usually after the ICJ judgment is not an enforceable judgment because it's a policy. ICJ is a policy court, international policy court. Any party who intends to implement the judgment of the ICJ will enter into an agreement with the United Nations for the purpose of implementation. So Nigeria was forced to enter that agreement. That agreement was signed in a city in New York called Green Tree. That's why they call it
the Green Tree Agreement.
The Green Tree Agreement, yes. So the Green Tree Agreement had two provisions. Provision number one is that in Article 4, it provided the various demarcation maps from that old colonial treaty. And say these are the demarcation beacons that you have to use in the land boundary and the water boundary, maritime boundary. Then Article 6 set up a joint mixed commission and the office of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel. to be responsible for the management and demarcation of the boundary. So that judgment was not automatic. It was subject to arrangement. So Nigeria and Cameroon sat down together and negotiated agreement in accordance with Article 9 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and Article 74. Now, let me explain something about the sea. Before 1958, by 1930, when that colonial agreement was in place, the sea was controlled by different countries. Nigeria controlled the sea, Cameroon controlled the sea. British controlled, Germans controlled. By 1958, the international law evolved. It started actually by 1969, where they had the Vienna Convention, which is basically that all treaties, international treaties, are sacrosanct and must be bound. The principle of law called Pacta Sunt Servanda. That made that applicable. 1958, they set up the Geneva Convention of the Law of the Sea. They put together laws of the seas together. By 1982, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea came into place. The implication of the Law of the Sea is this. No country owns the sea. Any country who wants to have a portion of the sea to go to the United Nations and apply. And that no country, no coastal state, no coastal territory, no estuary should be declared as landlocked. And the word hem in was eliminated from the dictionary of the Law of the Sea. That is what happened with that unit. That is why today, the Constitution of Nigeria does not control the sea. It controls internal water, rivers and creeks. The Constitution of the Sea, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And that is why Nigerian government even applied to the United Nations 2021 for the expansion of its continental shelf under Article 74 and 83 to be able to have extra coastal lines. So I'm trying to explain that Nigerian law is limited in terms of explaining the territorial ownership of the sea. Anything in front of the sea upward is not under the jurisdiction of the Nigerian Supreme Court. It's only the United Nations or a court like the ICJ that can pronounce on it. So to summarize on this point, the dispute between Nigeria and Cameroon was settled in 2006 when Nigeria signed the Great Trade Agreement and agreed to hand over the territory. Nigeria negotiated littoral assets. The word littoral is a Latin word, okay? And in Latin, littoral means the shore of the sea, of a territory, the mouth of the ocean. And in international law, Article 9, which Nigeria has domesticated in 2004, Cap 3.5, recognized that the mouth of the sea, the boundary between with which Nigeria territory can be demarcated, is the estuary, the Calabar estuary. In front of the estuary is the sea, behind the estuary is internal waters. So that is the judgment, and that's what Nigeria negotiated under the Green Trade Agreement. So Nigeria negotiated from the Calabar estuary, negotiated access to the Atlantic Ocean, that's littoral access to the Atlantic Ocean from the shore, negotiated littoral access through the Bioko Island into the Gulf of Guinea from the Calabar estuary, and then from the sea, from the Akwa Efa as well. That's what happened. What was left was for the Joint Mixed Commission to come and complete the demarcation exercise based on
which brings me to my next question. Which brings me to my next question.
But rather than wait for the Joint Mixed Commission, National Boundary Commission went there and cut out the portion of the remaining part of the Bakassi that was not seeded.
Well, but then there are those who still blame the Cross River State government for, what happened, the complacency as to how this issue was handled, which led to the Boundary Commission's demarcation, which did not necessarily favor you. Although you're saying that there's a 2024 technical study that shows that 67 out of the 76 oil wells are still within your maritime boundary. Can you explain what data or methodology was used that you're relying on to make this particular, statement?
Okay, so you won't blame the Cross River State government because Cross River State government had the Attorney General, had representatives, including the Urbans of Calabar and a lot of other top luminaries at the ICJ. It was a little bit very emotional when they lost all of those territories, which was considered as the heart of the Efik nation. It was not when Crossivarians and the Efik people cry over Bakassi, it's not because of oil well, it is their ancestral home. That is why in the course of our argument, we're trying to draw attention to the fact that what Cross River State is trying to draw the attention of the federal government to is that you have unceded territories in Bakassi. And within those territories, if there are oil well across Bakassi in Cameroon, you know that contiguous of the oil well across this portion. So our territory is not limited to that point. That's number one. Number two is that you have the question, Why is Cross River State laying claims to oil wealth? Now, under section 44, sub 3 of the Constitution, any portion of the international sea belongs to the government of Nigeria, Federal Republic of Nigeria. No state has the ownership of the sea. The provisions of the law of the sea, when they refer to littoral state in international law, is Nigeria they are referring to, not Akwa Ibom State, not Cross River State. Because the Supreme Court does not have the jurisdiction to make determination in respect of littoral boundaries between between Nigeria and Cameroon. That was why Nigeria couldn't cite the judgment of the Supreme Court in the ICJ, not even one provision. We couldn't even cite our municipal laws. We were forced to cite international treaty. And so that boundary where Akwa Ibom is claiming and all of that, it cannot be claimed until there's a demarcation by the Joint Means Commission, which will determine. Because I keep saying so, if Cross River State had the 9 territories in Bakassi, Akwa Ibom had none. If Cross River State now lost 5.5 of the territories, the balance is left here. Which portion are you cutting to Akwa Ibom? They have no claim in Bakassi. There are no presentation before the ICJ. They have no boundary. Our ascription to oil wealth is based on section 44, which says that every offshore and offshore oil well within the Nigeria coastal and inland boundary belongs to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Just hold that thought. Because I want you to explain it very well. I want to go on a quick break, please. We'll go on a very quick break and come back. When we come back, we'll explain that aspect where you're saying the littoral state there is referring to the Nigerian state, not necessarily the Akwa Ibom or Cross River side of the states. Okay, so just hold that thought. We're still speaking with the former Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly on this issue of the Bakassi and 76 oil wells and who's supposedly the main custodian. My name is Maryann Okon. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
9.3 Nigeria Info. We'll be right back.
Hey there, mums and dads. Did you know that some children are picky eaters and also do not get enough fruits and vegetables from their diet? Well Kid Baby and Infant Syrup is a food supplement from Vitabiotics that contains 14 vitamins and minerals, including vitamin C and zinc, as well as flaxseed oil, which supports brain development and all-round health. Well Kid Baby and Infant Tasty Syrup is for children 3 months to 5 years of age. Give your young ones a good start with Well Kid Baby and Infant from Vitabiotics UK, available in pharmacies near you.
To dey healthy, not be for show. Na life where you suppose dey live. And if you dey cook light with power oil, then you sabi wetin dey healthy. You dey stay active, e mean say you stand fit. Chop light, dey move body, no excuses oh. Power oil dey your kitchen. Now you get am, feel am, enjoy am. Make you dey confirm, make you dey 100% fit. Power oil, now your lifestyle choice.
Power oil.
E get many things where they gbadu pampe for. You fit dey transfer yafun free of charge.
Tell me more.
Data and airtime na cheap on top pampe.
No be tori na dey hear.
You pay for something, they give you something back. No be play.
No be cashback be that.
Dem still sama you reach 20% kule interest on top saving.
This better. Na more.
Na app we get many enjoyment and jollification. Na pampe. Say yes to more.
It's my dollar day. Hallelujah, it's my dollar day. Oh yeah.
Oh yes, your Naira card is now like dollars in your pockets, as you can now shop directly on stores like Amazon, eBay, Macy's, and many more in the USA, all with your Naira card. And here's the bigger news. With African Import-Export Solutions, you can now shop anywhere in the USA, completely tax-free. That means you save thousands shopping your favorite items like the latest phones, gadgets, electronics, fashion items, auto parts, and lots more. To learn how to save thousands and get your items delivered to you in just 3 to 5 business days, visit www.africanies.com or call 0700 800 7000 today. African Import-Export Solutions, making global shopping simple for Nigerians.
Remember how mom would wake up early,
make us breakfast. Are you know our uniform?
We have to do something special for her.
Yes, so let's make this money first.
Why wait? Reward your mom now with a trip to Zanzibar in the 2025 3 Crowns Milk Mom of the Year competition. Write a note with each letter of a name and submit with a picture of 16s or 2 refill pouches or 30 sachets on www.3crowns.com.ng or at our collection centers for your chance to win. T's and C's apply. 3 Crowns Milk. Healthy moms, happy families.
Lagos State Environmental and Special Enforcement Unit Task Force hereby calls on Lagosians to obey the law. Okada riders should stop riding one way on prohibited highway and other restricted routes, or their motorcycles will be impounded and crushed. Motorists are advised not to drive against traffic, as the vehicle shall be forfeited to the Lagos State government and auctioned through the court when apprehended. Also, street traders, roadside mechanics, illegal motor garages and ticketers are against the law. Miscreants and touts are also warned from collecting illegal levies on public roads. The task force is poised to enforce the Road Traffic Laws 2012 and Transport Sector Reform Law 2018. Anyone caught will face the law. Be a responsible citizen. Do not break the law. Igbega Ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó, Ajumosheni, CSP Tayo Akerele, Chairman, Lagos State Task Force. Announcer.
Meals have a way of taking us on a journey, and when you add plenty of vegetables like efo, ugu, and season with the rich taste of North seasoning cubes, even better.
So, go ahead and elevate your meals with more vegetables and the rich taste of Knorr cubes. Today, eat for good.
Hey, yeah, now Rabi, with Orabi, but it's strong, my mouth is fresh, it clean well, oh, now Orabi, strong teeth Orabi, fresh bread Orabi, 24/7 with Orabi, strong teeth Orabi.
Give on our teeth 24 hours protection. Use Orabi today. Na Nigerian Dental Association. Tanda Gidigba with Orabi.
Little body, big moves. Little brain, big learning. Your little child is eager to do big things. Every sachet of Cerelac Junior comes with the nutrition they need: natural grains, protein, and iron to support their physical growth, learning, and development. So you can fully enjoy your little one's big moments of growth.
Okay now, dependable insurance. After God, you are the next insurer. See as the boys the Allah. All the ladies the Allah. Your car protection from accidents. Unforeseen loss, you can see them. Mistakes are meant to happen. If you don't jam the car, they'll jam yours. Will you beat them? Yes, you will get them arrested. Your plans for that day is affected. You waste your money, you waste energy. With AXA, you can be protected.
Get the protection that pays today. Call 0700 AXA Mansa to get a motor insurance that pays. AXA, know you can.
See, everybody with him own wahala. Every day comes with its own version of challenges, and you have to be ready to face them, because only then can you move on to the next. That's why I never miss my breakfast. Scratch that! My peak breakfast, with the nutrients and energy I need to face each day, one challenge at a time.
Every day is a good day to power on with a peak breakfast. Have you had your peak? Reach for your peak.
In the cooking game, you need a winning game plan. I'm not just talking about your fresh ingredients, utensils, or cooking skills. I'm talking about your choice of seasoning. My game plan is incomplete without Maggi chicken flavor. Made with a flavorful formation of onions, celery, turmeric, it's my game changer. Elevate the taste of your everyday dishes with delicious, rich chicken flavor. Oh yeah, let's go.
New Maggi chicken flavor, my game changer.
This is Nigeria Info, where the conversation begins.
Do you think, as a scientist, we need GMOs in Nigeria?
Nigeria, as a government, has a policy that promotes the use of advanced biotech.
This is your number one station.
99.3.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
This is Hard Facts.
We're back. This is Hard Facts, 99.3 Nigeria Info. We're still looking at a decade-long resource and identity battle between two southern states, Cross River and Akwa Ibom. And today, I have joining me in the studio to discuss, of course, this issue, the former Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly, John-Gaul Lebo. And he's been explaining to us, obviously, the history of this situation that has become a thing that we have to discuss on television and on radio. And of course, the push of Cross River State to get what belongs to them rightfully. John-Gaul has been giving us some background. Now, before we went on that break, Mr. Lebo, you were telling us about the fact that we were looking at the issue of the Supreme Court's judgment and Akwa Ibom laying claim to what you call a literal state. But before we go ahead with your conversation, we are live on facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. We're live on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. Join the conversation, post your comment. I would like to hear from you. So before we went on that break, you were talking about something. Let's go back to that. The argument that, look, the Supreme Court has given an issue saying that, look, this Akwa Ibom has won twice. Akwa Ibom is laying claim to the fact that these oil wells are now theirs. But you're saying, at what point did the demarcation give the oil wells to them? But then the average Nigerian who's watching is going to say, well, that's what the court says. Are you going back to court as a state to push for this? Akwa Ibom is on the one hand saying that we've been paying you some monies now as part of our derivatives. So what are you arguing about? Help us make sense of it, please.
Okay, first, let's demarcate the issues into two. The first issue is that let's deal with the issue of the ICJ judgment and the Supreme Court judgment. Mm-hmm. The ICJ judgment gave the judgment and located it at the mouth of the sea, based on the provisions of the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, which is outside the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. The ICJ judgment is to the fact that the Calabar estuary is the mouth of the sea for the purpose of demarcating Nigerian boundary into the Atlantic Ocean, into the Gulf of Guinea, and to the sea. The ICJ judgment is yet to be implemented, but Nigeria negotiated with Cameroon that we are going to hand over southern Bakassi to you on condition that you're going to give us littoral access through the three demarcations. The instrument of handover clearly provided for demarcation through Bioko Island to the Gulf of Guinea, through the Calabar estuary into the Atlantic Ocean, and through the Kang mangrove into the sea. That is the instrument Nigeria agreed with Cameroon. It is left for the Joint Means Commission to come and complete that maritime demarcation exercise. When the Joint Means Commission will come, the National Boundary Commission rushed to the area, moved beyond the mouth of the sea, went up to Tom Short Island, which is the Calabar territory that was handed over to Cameroon, and drew a line from there, took part of the Kang mangrove and part of this spring and gave to Akwa Ibom. That's on the basis that is an internal boundary demarcation of Nigeria. Now, the argument for Cross River State is that how will the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and the ICJ provide that the Calabar estuary is the mouth of the sea and you ignore it to draw a line? The reason is because what the National Boundary Commission did was not the demarcation between Nigeria and Cameroon because they have no jurisdiction. What they did was they were looking for a certain 75 oil wells and how to locate that oil well out of Cross River to Akwa Ibom. Of course, we know the background. They say when they came to Cross River, nobody attended to them. So they took a unilateral decision, that decision had no presentation from Cross River. The same Cross River that suffered at the ICJ lost 5.5%, 70% of its territories to Cameroon on behalf of Nigeria. National Boundary Commission was not before the ICJ, it was the Surveyor General and the Attorney General. They now came and carried out that exercise for Akwa Ibom. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that the judgment of the Supreme Court did not demarcate the boundary between Nigeria and Cameroon in the mouth of Cross River and between the islands of Southern Bakassi and Western Bakassi. The judgment of Supreme Court did not demarcate the boundary between Akwa Ibom and Cross River because we had no boundary dispute. The boundary of Akwa Ibom through Oron flank and through Umbo River, it through into the Akwa Efa is very clear. The boundary of Cross River through Ikang Mangrove, Day Spring, to the mouth of Akwa Efa. It's very clear. There was no dispute. What happened that you now came and drew a line? There was no dispute. So the Supreme Court.
So what's the case right now? Because we want to understand, has the Boundary Commission's attention been drawn to the situation of the line that they drew before now? Has a new line been drawn? Have they come back to look at it? And what is the situation?
No. I'm coming to that point. The point I'm making is that after that line was drawn, the purpose of drawing that line was because of the location of a certain 76 oil wells. There are more than 76 oil wells in the unseeded portion of Bakassi that is in Cross River. More than, maybe 5 times more than that. But how did the 76 oil well come about? In the course of handing over negotiation, President Obasanjo negotiated that between the contiguous zone of Cameroon and Nigeria, from Tom Short Island to Efiat Island, down where they have OML 112, 113, and 114, there are certain 76 oil wells. Cross River State will hold those oil wells at least so that it will show that they didn't lose anything out of Bakassi. When Cross River State went to court to say, please, the president has done the political solution for us. Can we retain the oil well? The Supreme Court said, no, they have not demarcated your boundary. Wait for the International Mist Commission to demarcate your boundary before you take the oil wells. That was the first judgment you say we lost in 2005. That was what the Supreme Court said. No, we cannot confirm your 76 oil wells until the demarcation is done. Then in 2008, without the demarcation being concluded, we went and drew the line and sent this thing to Akwa Ibom. And then we went to court and they said that that's the decision of the Supreme Court. It is final. The point I'm making is that the decision of the Supreme Court did not demarcate the territory maritime territory between Nigeria and Cameroon. It's only the Joint Mist Commission after demarcating Nigeria that will do it. The Supreme Court decision, judgment, did not relocate the geological formation, the seabed from which those oil wells are located. It mentioned in 1775. So beyond the 6 oil wells within that area, the balance of the oil well, who did they belong to? Will you give it to Cameroon? That is why we drew the attention of the Nigerian government. Section 162 of the Constitution provides that a state can benefit, which is the point I was making. Akwa Ibom does not own the sea. They are only allowed to benefit 13% of derivation of oil. Nigeria owns the balance. Cross River State doesn't own the sea. We are entitled to 13%. Section 162 provides that to be able to own oil wells, you is dependent on 2 factors. Offshore, if your coastal line can give you 200 meters isobat, you are allowed to get 13% derivation of the oil well. If the oil well is not if you don't have access to the sea, but your oil well is within your internal basin and internal waters, you will still earn 13% derivation. That is why Imo State does not have access to the sea. It's not a littoral state. They have oil well. Abia State is not a littoral state. They don't have access to the sea. They have 13% derivation. Edo State is not a littoral state. They have access. If Ogun State is a littoral state, has access to the sea, it's Nigeria's closest boundary with Sao Tome. Touching distance by boat, 45 minutes when in Sao Tome. They don't have oil wells within that area. So Cross River State has oil well within its internal basin. First, the unseeded part of Bakassi, which Nigeria considers as internal waters, all down to Dupani, Ikotofiong, Biabo, Ukwa. Okay, all of those areas up to places. See, those oil wells have been capped since 1950 in Dupani local government, in Awi local government, in Famusin, in Urban Massif, in up to Akwe Central. Those oil wells have been there. So one of the credit that we give to our governor, Prince Basil too, is that he's one governor who came, set up a committee and said, look, can we do a diagnosis of this ICJ judgment? And he said, please, can you locate how many territories we lost to Cameroon? What is left in Cross River? We located it for him. And we showed him that we still have about 3.5 territories in Cross River. He said, what is inside those territories? We say you can ask the NUPRC to find out for you. He wrote to the president, he got approval. The Surveyor General of Akwa Ibom, Cross River, and the Federation were invited. They went through that area and found 85 oil wells outside of the 76, which is the point I was making to you, that you do not, under Section 162, you do not need to be a littoral state to have oil. Akwa Ibom has more onshore oil wells than offshore oil wells. So Cross River State. So this whole argument about Bakassi is not to claim whether Cross River has oil well or not. That issue is
So what
technically
exactly is the
by
issue
Section
then?
162. Yeah, see, no, the issue is that there is a balance of territory from the ICJ judgment that is still in Nigeria that we have abandoned. And that is the Kang mangrove, which by the demarcation of that judgment, they are cutting out to Akwa Ibom. The Spring Island, which they are also disputing. The smaller Akwa Island is there, the Western Urban, and the Calabar Estuary. Look, by virtue of the provisions of the law of the sea, the Calabar Estuary is described in the dictionary of the sea as the mouth of the Atlantic Ocean from which Nigeria boundary will be demarcated from. Okay. The front of the estuary is international water, is the sea. The back of the estuary is Nigeria internal water. The judgment of the Supreme Court did not recognize that provision because the National Boundary Commission went trying to demarcate local institutions. So that is why for the purpose of this argument, what Cross River State is saying is that, number one, the fact that we have spent time quarreling over 76 oil wells relocated wrongly to Akwa Ibom has made Nigeria to forget that we still have 3.5 of those islands that are within Cross River. The welfare of the people is still at stake. The Nigerian government promised to create a new territory in Day Spring, 1 and 2, and Western Abana to be able to receive the refugees of Bakassi. The Nigerian government agreed in the Green Tree Agreement to create additional state constituency to bring Cross River to 26 for Bakassi to be able to be represented in State House of Assembly. The people who were relocated, who are in the Pre-Kan, in Atayama, in Akpakanya, in the Poor Island, are still homeless. They are moving between the conurbated islands of Odupani, of Creektown, and then up to Ikan.
So are you saying that as a result of this arrangement, which I mean, generally many people who have been following it would tell you would fault that agreement in its entirety, especially because now you're saying that there are a lot of people who are displaced as a result of that agreement, right? What exactly is the fate of those people now? Because I know that you have a lot of refugees coming from the Anglophone part of Cameroon.
Now, the thing is that the Green Tree Agreement is faulted on the fact that if Nigeria had not signed it, those islands wouldn't have, the whole of Bakassi wouldn't have been ceded to Cameroon. If it was not signed, that judgment would have been footnote in history. On Nigerian government side, that's why it was faulted. Because Nigerian government signed it, they handed over Southern Bakassi. When people say they handed over Bakassi, they give you the impression that they handed everything about Bakassi. It's not true. It's not true. They handed over 5.5 of the island. Of course, that is the core of the island. Let me tell you, this Bakassi territory included a territory in Equatorial Guinea called Payang, which was also the Calabar territory. It was handed over. So that has been handed over. There's something still left behind, which is why we're drawing attention. Now, what is left behind is that the Ikang mangrove may not be habitable enough, but the Day Spring is habitable, has land areas where people can live. The Nigerian government promised to build a new settlement for the returning people in Day Spring. Up till now, after the signing of Green Tree Agreement and handing over this territory in 2008, nothing has been done. The Cross River State government is suffering the impact of that. The Bakassi local government has made up of 10 council wards. 4 of the council wards are meant to be located within the island in the sea. They are refugees in the Bakassi local government because the Bakassi local government that was created had the water side and the inland side. The inland side, they cut out the can to create that local government. The balance of the other ones that are coming out of the 5 council wards are supposed to be located on the island. There is no rehabilitation on the island because Nigerian government went there, or National Boundary Commission went there with a good relationship with Akwa Ibom to cut out the balance of what is left. The people lost their territory, the balance of the territory where they're supposed to get oil wells to live well in Nigeria. They've given it to Akwa Ibom. But the point we're making is that Cross River State, even though we will lose 76 oil wells, we are going to come to 76 oil wells. And I'll tell you how those 76 oil wells will come back. But first of all, Nigerian government must recognize the territory that were not ceded.
Okay.
Must recognize the Kang mangrove, must recognize Day Spring 1 and 2, Western Abala, as the Calabar Estuary, as still part of the territories benefit from the judgment of the ICJ. And then the issue of the oil wells on the inland basin of Cross River State. It's not even arguable. Let me tell you what happened. After we got 85 oil wells, and it was taken to the data analysis, it was discovered that because of the wrong line that they drew, giving part of Calabar Estuary to Akwa Ibom still got 18 oil wells from our inland basin, from our internal waters. They still got 18. That means that at every point in time you get more oil wells from Cross River, Akwa Ibom will take part of it. That is where the injustice is. So back to the 76 oil wells. The judgment of the Supreme Court is final. But there are circumstances under which the judgment of the Supreme Court becomes obligatory for the purpose of administrative use, or the Supreme Court reverses itself. One of such is that where there is a new law in place on a policy that has been gazetted, that judgment will not have. And I'll give you a typical example. Rotimi Amechi became governor of Rivers State by virtue of a judgment of the Supreme Court. He did not run contest for primaries. He did not contest for general elections. His name was not on the list of candidates. He was declared governor. After that, the electoral was amended to say for you to be declared as governor, you have to take part in primaries, you have to be nominated, you have to contest election, you have to campaign, you have to win, you have to be the highest person who got the vote in the election. The judgment of the Supreme Court in Amechi case can never be cited any longer. Nobody can become governor on the basis of what Amechi became. So for this case, what needs to happen is that the Nigerian administrative map will definitely be updated after 10 years of that decision. One, because the movement of geological formation, water map, and all of that, the Nigerian map has to be updated, because if you remain on that same map, you are going to lose part of the Nigerian territory to Cameroon. Once that is updated and gazetted, the judgment of the Supreme Court becomes obligatory.
Okay, because I have 5 minutes on the clock, and there's several people who want to be part of this conversation. I would like to open up the phone lines. 30 seconds, everyone who wants to join the conversation. We're still talking about this Bakassi, Cross River and Akwa Ibom imbroglio, where government got it wrong, where the Boundary Commission also got it wrong. It's a conversation that could last us for weeks and weeks, and I'm being joined by the former Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly, Right Honourable John-Gaul Lebo. Join the conversation. We're live, facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. On WhatsApp, you can send us a message. It's 0809597585. Call 0201-277-0993. 0201-465-7190. We'll be very quick and chop about it. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Maryann.
Yes.
Good evening.
30 seconds. Go ahead, Ambrose.
My name is Ambrose.
Yes.
Maryann, if they were fighting for all of this now to develop Akwa Ibom and Cross River, it would have been interesting. All these monies that they are fighting for now, at the end of the day, we won't see it in the life of the people. All this grammar they are speaking now, all the ones they have gotten before, of what good has it done to the Akwa Ibomites and the Cross Riverians? So I don't think all these things is for the interest of the state. It's for their own personal interest. Good evening.
All right. Thank you, Ambrose. 0201-277-0993, 0201-465-7190. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Hello, Maryann. How are you? You have to say the here.
Go ahead.
I appreciate his knowledge, intellectual capacity, everything. I want to ask him, how cooperative are the people of Cross River across political parties? Because you have a very, very brilliant senior advocate of Nigeria, former Chief Justice of this country, in the name of Kano Agabi. With this kind of cases he is citing here, have you not even consulted people like him and use your influence to get what is due to you? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable, this is a political question, and he's asking. We have amazing, legal luminaries from Cross River State. He's saying, are you consulting with these people to help us, get the kind of solutions that we're trying to get, especially getting whatever it is that the law that we're asking be put in place to favor our Cross Riverians? Another person called to ask that this fight, are you fighting for Cross Riverians, or is this money is going to end up in the pocket of politicians? You're a politician also, so let's ask you this question.
Okay, let me quickly run through. There's a question he asked before about Akwa Ibom offering money. That's capital lie. Akwa Ibom has never offered any money. Cross River has never received any money from Akwa Ibom. The reason is because even when Senator Leah was governor, I was a House of Assembly member. The issue was that, which Akwa Ibom was talking about, Senator Leah insisted that we were looking for our territories. What is left of the Bakassi judgment? Don't take away what is left of the ICJ judgment from us. The same thing when I was governor, when I was speaker, the same thing happened. When Prince Otu came in as governor, like I told you, he was smart enough to set up a team And we talked about Kanu Agabi and the rest. All of these intellectual things you're talking about, we have them into a community of box of argument. So my presentation reflects what everybody else has seen. We've been amazed at the fact that the Nigerian government, after signing the Great Trade Agreement and the mistake that they made by giving part of our territory to our partner, we're expecting the Nigerian government to come back and say, look, we'll correct this mistake and then be able to recognize the remaining territories that are there.
Okay, because I have just 1 minute before we go. 1 minute. What is the reaction you're getting from the Tinubu administration? Is there any body language that presumes that maybe they might be interested in correcting this error before the 2027 elections? But we have 60 seconds literally before we go.
Yes, the President Tinubu's administration recognizes cross-river state littoral status and our coastal line. That's why the coastal highway was moved from Lagos through Oron down to Cross River State and to the mouth of the estuary. I can assure you that coastal highway ends in the Kwa Island, which is one of the last watermarks before the sea. So that is recognition. Number two is that it is the federal government that set up the panel that found 85 oil wells in Cross River, 18 to Akwa Ibom, and 67 to Cross River. So the federal government recognized that in a matter of time will be listed as an oil-producing state. That's one. And then the second aspect is that we're also working with the Surveyor General and the Hydrographer General of the Federation to ensure that they correct the Nigerian maritime map to reflect the fact that where the 76 oil wells are located is within the Cross River State territory. That thing will take time, but we're ready to wait.
All right. I want to say thank you. Right Honorable John-Gaul Lebo is a former Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly. Thank you so much for coming on to explain this situation in detail to my listeners, so at least people understand your point of argument and where you're going with all of this. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. We appreciate you for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, Lagos, that's the show. We've got to go. Tomorrow is another day. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Nigeria Info FM. But you can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, MIMIEYO. My name is Maryann Okon. Thank you all for being part of the conversation. Tomorrow, we'll be back with hard facts. Have a good evening.
This is Hard Facts.
You are listening to your number one station for talk.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria.